So, we're going to have to work in Terpsichorean.
Should I look that up?
I was thinking, no.
Okay.
I mean, you can look it up later, but first we got to take a stab at it. I have a theory.
Okay.
All right, so we have our listener Lior.
Singular.
Thanks for that comment. Humbly submits the word, but I think terpsichore or terpsichore is, I think, one of the 7 muses, and I think it's the muse of dance.
That would make a lot of sense.
Okay. So Terpsichorean must mean, if I'm right about that, dancerly, the exact word.
Episode 10, the Terpsichorean episode, when Tedium is the medium. In this episode, your hosts Steve and Mal hurtle from point A to point B while mulling over the dance between slog and art, as well as the possible origins of the bagpipe. Strap in for The Ride to Redacted. Please be advised there are occasional cuss words in these episodes. So now you know.
But the thing is, all right, so we've toyed with the linguistics of Terpsichorean, dancerly. But now what does that then lead us to? And also, we got to throw into the mix, though, that Lior humbly submits it.
Okay.
As the comments to episode 5 made clear. And I just loved, I humbly submit. I mean, first of all, the humility of this person is, it's much appreciated.
It's breathtaking.
Which, I mean, you don't usually see those 2 words combined, humility and breathtaking. Do you find that Lior...
IRL.
IRL is breathtakingly humble?
Sure. I think he has little cause to be humble in terms of he's a pretty fucking stand-up guy.
Yeah.
Who I'm proud to call my friend.
Okay. But Terpsichorean, I don't think we've done what Lior in all of his humility would hope for.
He prostrated himself at the foot of the throne of the Ride to Redacted.
Right.
And with shaking hand reached out and humbly submitted Terpsichorean. I think the key is going to be working it into something that we say in a key moment of callback.
Okay, fine.
So what have you been up to recently?
I have been wrestling with the dark angel of WordPress.
And what's your wrestler name?
Gary Schwartz. I see no reason to abandon that. I have no idea
if he'll ever listen to this.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why I haven't heard from him.
I think you should put link his website in the show notes.
Okay. Done.
Wrestling with the dark angel
of WordPress. Turns out, lately I've gotten the Ride to Redacted website pretty much under control, but your suggestions are good, and I know I need to do more with making the comment features accessible to listeners who we know want to be commenting. And we welcome those comments.
Yeah.
But it turns out that for you WordPress nerds out there, permalink pages as opposed to more dynamic pages, you can put in the comments block but the comments that are then posted are not visible. So I think what I need to do is somehow create a blog type page that will do everything that we want. It'll have comments, it'll have all the episodes, it'll have show notes, and I'll use drop down menus. I mean, I'm not going to go into greater detail on this. I've already overstayed my welcome with the nerdiness here.
Yeah, so if any of you nerd press heads have any
nerd press,
any advice?
Well, no, okay. I'll take the advice, but I think I know what to do now.
Okay.
So this, by way of answering your question, that's too much of what I've been up to lately. But it's interesting. So one finds as one creates this podcast, or both of ones, that in some ways, hard as it is, the easy part is creating it, and the brilliance that goes into this conversation. And more challenging is like getting it out there.
Yeah, not only is it challenge. I mean, for some of us, it's also like work that is not pleasant to do, and therefore we don't do it.
Work that is not what?
Pleasant to do.
Okay, all right. I guess there's part of my. This is probably a personality defect, but there's part of my psyche, to a point, finds this pleasant to do.
Well, that's why you're the one who does it.
Yeah, right, okay. It works out then.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but to a point, I mean, after that point, it's like, But because I don't have to do it, it still, like, gets classified under fun. It's like...
Well, I think that's an important and interesting vein to tap into, which is the things that we enjoy doing are often not pleasurable in the doing of them. Like, I mean, specifically when it comes to creative endeavors, I think this is a thing that a lot of artists say, and I would say this about my artistic practice too, that although the process of creation is in some ways like a psychological need on par with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Shout out to Maslow.
Shout out to my boy Maslow.
My boy. My buddy.
My home slice Maslow. But there's a need there. There's a drive. The act of creating, you come up with the idea, you get excited, you collect your materials. There's often not this sort of orgiastic burst of pleasure as you're creating. It's often like doing something kind of repetitive or kind of unpleasant. There was this artist who I read this article about an artist many, many years ago who was doing miniature carvings. They were like the size of he was carving things out of like tips of pencils or grains of rice or even grains of salt. And there was an exhibition of his works, and they were displayed in like the eyes of needles and things. And so they were like magnifying glasses or even microscopes, so that you could walk around and view all of his pieces. And he said that he would paint them with like the hair of like a fly, which sounds like some crazy witchcraft shit. And he said that he would have to enter this sort of meditative state in order to have his hands be steady enough for him to do these tiny little carvings. And sometimes it would be like whole scenes. It would be like the Last Supper carved out of a grain of rice, like something crazy, and then he would paint it. So he was like, it's not fun to do this. It's not pleasurable. But he had something inside of him that made him do this, because most people wouldn't fucking do that if it wasn't enjoyable.
I think that's probably true.
And so
yeah.
So I think there's something in the creative process that involves like drudgery, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
the pursuit of joy. But I think creating, let's say, a podcast And then, like, the desire for, it's like the other kids have, like, a gazillion listeners. But the thing is, you know, like, it doesn't have to be all about, like, you have to become famous just because, like, the other people that you look at are. No. You could have fun doing a podcast with a very select, well, how did you put it? We have a very niche audience. And anybody who's in that. Niche sounds so much better than tiny.
You know what? Exclusive.
Exclusive.
We have an exclusive listenership.
Yes. They self-select. I mean, what would we... And we're not going to pander. I'm just saying that right now. Just occurred to me. Don't even think of it. The podcast industrial complex. Mm-hmm. Don't get on us to pander. Like, what would... But, I mean, if we wanted to pander, how would we do that? Just out of curiosity.
Well, maybe we would ask our listeners what words they wanted us to work into the episodes. For example.
Oh, that hurts because that's a zinger.
But, you know, like...
No, that's fair.
We can't slam pandering too bad. Because, I mean, the panders are going extinct.
The panders. Okay. Pander pun coming at you. All right. We got a lot... But I think Terpsichorean, not to strain to come back to it too early in this drive. I think there's something out there. So we have the pure the joy of artistic creation, and the drudgery, and maybe the Terpsichoreans of old. It was like dancing. There probably wasn't. I mean, even now, like if you're a
rehearsing
dancer,
a lot,
yeah, and if
you might be like, I'm cold and tired and hungry and want to go home.
I think there's a lot of people out there in the, dancing community, the dance profession, that they don't make a lot of money, modern dance, that are really good and they're doing good work and it's low paying, and maybe there's not a lot of fame, but you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, maybe that's the true Terpsichorean right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're doing it for the joy of dancing, and there's going to be drudgery, sure.
You may have to take a long drive in order to make a podcast.
For example. Yeah, and there may be road noise, and you're gonna have to like struggle to filter that out. And maybe you're gonna like buy $37 or $34 and change worth of foam from California on a suggestion from your cousin Kenny, who does like studied sound recording.
Kenny Schwartz. Brother to Gary,
okay.
The famed wrestler.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And maybe that's all involved. I mean, there's work. I know this will come to listeners, and they feel like, oh, these guys are just like falling off a log. They're not working for this. It's just... And
some of us aren't. Some of us are.
Okay. You're just freeloading here.
Yes, I'm in free fall.
On the other hand, I realize, I think somewhere between episode 1 and 2, that the sooner I realize that you are the star, the better this would go.
Well, as soon as you listened back to episode 1 and realized how much you were cutting me off, I gotta...
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, yes. Better listening from Steve is definitely needed.
Yeah. Did
also,
improv teach you nothing?
Yeah, it's hard to learn the lessons of improv, just as it's hard to become a dancer. Do the work. You got to do the work. Mm-hmm.
I like projects that involve just something repetitive, and like this is something that my ADHD friends and loved ones cannot understand. They're like, I would peel my skin off, frankly, if I had to sit down and do that for an hour and nobody was telling me to. I would just literally not do that. And I'm like, that's part of the project that I enjoy doing. And not that I feel euphoric while doing it. It's just, it's satisfying. I think there's other forms of joy and pleasure that can come from drudgery I mean, we talk about the satisfaction of like a job well done or like making something that you're proud of and looking at the product. But even the process of doing, there's something meditative or there's something meaningful about working with your hands. It's one of those things that if I've been drawing a lot or writing a lot and I'm starting to feel stuck, I'll go and do some sewing or something, because especially hand sewing, like rather than machine sewing, because there's something about specifically working with your hands and creating something with your hands where at the end the thing is done and made and you made the whole thing, you know, that I can't get that feeling from anything else. And it's one of the reasons why costume making will like forever be like my first love. You know, it's one of those things that I fell hard in love with when I started making cosplay and trying to be more professional about my methods, which I started when I was like 15.
Well, okay, all right. So here's the thing. I am actually going to be posting in the show notes to episode 6, Desire Path, or There's Nothing Magical About a Fart Cushion, which will drop the Thursday coming up, although that will be in the past by the time this episode 10, drops.
Okay.
So I took it upon myself for the show notes. I was like, I bet I just need to Google and look on YouTube for videos about hand farts.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of a manual activity, right?
Cool.
Do I need to explain to you what a hand fart is?
Nope.
Okay. All right. And then the phrase occurred to me like a Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand farting? But I never found it. I haven't Googled that yet. Maybe I'll find that before Thursday. But I did find. I think I just put in like hand fart videos or something. 13 years ago, somebody posted a video. I think it was the guy himself who did this, playing with 2 hands, not one, but hand farts with 2 hands, masterfully playing the major melodic theme from Bohemian Rhapsody, amazingly virtuosically. Purism is the theme that seems to be floating over this. Floating, not like
A
fart. Thank you. Not like that.
I said it so that you didn't have to.
Yeah, thanks.
And then you did anyway, because we're related.
The purism of hand farting coming at you. Amazing. This guy put in the work. You know, it's hard. I mean, he had a moment. I think the moment is long gone by now. You know, but he ended up being a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show, a much younger Jimmy Kimmel at that point. In doing his Bohemian Rhapsodic thing. But even so, I mean, I think he let on that he started this when he was a kid, this activity, as one does. I think most of the hand farting work that's done in the world is done by younger people.
Yeah, I would say that the field is pretty much dominated by your 6 to 18 demographic.
I want to do a callback to, which was the episode Living the Dream. Right. It's like where you talk about if you haven't made it in hand farting by what age?
I would say by 18, it's like you're
18. That's late.
Well, you're like a 30-year-old soccer player, professional soccer player. If you're 18 and still in the hand farting game.
So I mean, but here this was a guy who put in the work to something. I mean, even though he ended up with this.
Do you think he could still do it? Like,
what's that?
Do you think he could still do it? Like, if we knocked on his door?
I mean, he was that virtuous. You'll see. I mean, he'll be able to do it until his last day on Earth.
And he probably will.
They'll know that he's a goner when he stops hand farting.
He'll be like, play me out. And they'll drop the needle on Bohemian Rhapsody and
Yeah. Oh my God.
He'll shuffle off this mortal coil with his hands still feebly twitching.
He'll have like a Scottish bagpipe band.
Yes, playing Bohemian Rhapsody.
But they'll just have their bagpipes, but they'll hand fart it out.
I think a bagpipe is about as close to a hand fart as an instrument can be. There's a blowing element to it, but...
Oh my God! Yeah, could it be?
Not to anger my Scottish listeners.
What's today's date? April something. Late April.
April
2025. April 27th, 2025. Steve and Mal on a podcast stumble on the question: could it be that the bagpipe was initially inspired by the hand fart?
I think it was probably an inflated pig's bladder or some shit, but
that still doesn't answer the question.
No.
Right.
If anything, I think it it points the finger of suspicion all the more sharply at its origin being hand farting. But I was gonna say I think that the drudgery of creation is maybe the most human part. And I think human beings, not only willingness to do that, but also like sort of grim satisfaction in it, is that one thing that like AI art will never replicate. Because they can make like a weird airbrushed version of some other artist's work that they've like kind of stolen, but they can't do the repetitive drudgery. They can't get the satisfaction out of it, and they can't convey that feeling to an audience, because an audience can oftentimes either see the process of making because it is literally visible in how a thing is put together, or they can sense it in their own experience, be that vast or little, with that same art medium. Mm-hmm. They can sense how many millions of years it would take them through insane drudgery to accomplish that same end result.
There's something about great art, whatever, that we respond to. There's the opposite reaction that we can have, which is there's this moment of reacting to it where it feels like it happened in an instant. It just has an ineffable quality. That seems like, just fruit that was ripe that fell off. I mean, even with the fruit that's ripe that falls off a tree, it had to be on the tree for a while. But you look at it and it's just like whole, and it just seems like this just like dropped off. It just dropped out.
I think that you're right that there are works that are so developed that we can almost, that the artist's hand is invisible in it, that it looks as if it sprang from the head of someone fully formed.
Right.
And
Jove. The Venus
sprang
on the half shell.
Yeah. Venus on the half shell. Right.
I didn't make that up, and someone else said that.
It's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah. All acts of creation are,
okay.
Most acts of creation are worthy of being put out into the world. There's probably something out there that somebody could send me that would challenge me on all.
Oh, I probably have stuff at all.
You're like, I have it on my desktop.
Yeah, right.
But, it's one of those things. I mean, We've talked about desire paths.
Yeah.
And so it's
That's
one
the
of those...
one that's dropping on Thursday.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it says something about you. And it not only says something about who you are as a person, but of course you create who you are as a person every time you take an action. When you choose to make something and you choose to engage with the drudgery, you're forging yourself into, a more interesting person, and you're engaging with something that is your birthright as a human being to engage with, the creative muse, I guess.
The muse.
The muse.
Yeah, and this reminds me, I was going to bring up, I thought of this before we started, so if Terpsichore is the muse of dance, I'm trying to, what were the other 7 muses?
Yes, so we have Calliope, who's the muse of epic poetry.
Okay.
Clio, who's the muse of history. I like that history also has a muse.
Oh,
I think
wow.
that says something very interesting.
Yeah.
Polyhymna, hymns.
Okay.
Euterpe, flute. Why does flute get its own?
Flute gets its own.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have bagpipes, that's why.
Terpsichore, you're absolutely right. The Terpsichore's on this list.
And what was that of?
Light verse and dance, which sounds very
right.
pleasant, like you would have a glass of champagne and some light verse and dance.
Those were one muse for light verse and dance.
Yes.
Together, because you're not going to do just your dance without the light verse.
You're not
going to do the light verse
a Greek chorus, which maybe is related to Terpsichore. When you were watching a play, the chorus were the majority of the people on stage who would be masked, and they would be dancing, and they would be giving you the narration, basically.
Wow.
So that might be related. Anyway, erato, lyric choral poetry, melpomene, tragedy. I did know that.
What's that one?
Melpomene.
Melpomene?
Yeah, that was part of my old Tumblr URL. I think when I first started on Tumblr back in 2012, I had, for a brief period, I had a Tumblr URL which involved Melpomene's name, which is very angsty of me. But anyway, whatever. Talia, comedy. And Urania, astronomy, astrology, and space.
So wait, how many? I thought there were 7.
So I don't know why here. Okay, the number and names of the muses differed by region, but from the classical period, the number of muses was standardized to 9. Okay.
I've always sort of felt, or told myself I felt, that if you have an idea for a thing to create, like you're working on something or whatever, it's like you got to follow it.
Yes.
Like if you're going to be an artist and you're going to create, when the muse makes a noise saying, "Hey buddy, I got something for you."
Yeah.
Check it out.
When it comes and drops something in your lap, like a cat dropping a dead mouse in your lap.
Then the
eat
deal
the
is,
fucking mouse.
You got it. Yes, you got to respond. You got to. Yeah. Otherwise, probably the muse is like, "Fuck that guy."
Yeah.
I'm not giving him anything else. But the thing is this. So here we are, listeners, and we're making this. And wouldn't it be sad if there weren't millions of you? Don't you feel a little guilty if you're not promoting this?
If you're not a million.
If you're not a million people. If you don't have friends that you need to tell about this. And by the way, don't forget to comment.
Survey, yeah.
Because once I finish wrestling with the dark angel of WordPress, we already have the comment feature, but it's going to be, zhuzhed up as much as you might like. So comment, like, and subscribe. Right, putting in the work. You have to something to something.
You've got to fry a chicken if you want to get the eggs.
You have to break eggs if you want to make an omelet.
If you want to fry a chicken.
You can't fry a chicken without breaking the eggs. Metaphorically speaking. Okay. Lost in the metaphor.
Yes, lost in the sauce.
Right. What doesn't kill you.
Fries a chicken.
Exactly.
Gets egg on your face.
Right. All that.
All that.
All that and more.
At theridetoredacted.com.
You're not going to get this on, some of your NPR, NPR released things.
The nice
many
thing-
of which are good. They're good.
Yeah, they're okay.
They're fine. Okay.
The nice thing about editing down the episodes is that we would actually have content for, just a reel for an actual Patreon if we pick up enough listeners to make that worthwhile.
There's gobs of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably take, special drives to, short drives from Redacted to Redacted Prime or whatever, what have you. Or even non-drives. Whoa. I don't know. That seems... That's weird.
Yeah. The sit to Redacted.
Virtually every other podcaster out there,
Yes.
they're not in a car trying to
Yes.
struggle against
The sound
eliminating
of...
road noise.
Yeah.
They have clean audio. They're indoors. They're near a microphone.
Fuckers.
Wankers. Take the easy way out. You're not putting in the work. And it shows. You can hear it.
In their nice, clean, crisp
Yeah.
audio.
Yeah, I listen to these things on NPR or what have you. They're fine, but it's okay, but where's the road noise?
Where's the time where they narrowly avoided wanging the door out of some asshole's
Or hitting a car, in fact.
Yeah.
Yep, all that. So it may seem like this is easy, but
We're fighting for our fucking lives out here.
we're fighting. Well, we're all of us are always fighting entropy, and that's really what you're doing when you're creating art, or even trying to live.
I don't know if it's so much fighting entropy, because, entropy it's like the natural tendency of the universe to trend towards chaos and to devolve.
Right.
And so when you're making a piece of art, say it's like a piece of physical media, when you do things like select acid-free paper, or you work with paints that are more light-fast than other paints, what you're doing is fighting against entropy. But it's if you give in and acknowledge that everything is temporary, and you acknowledge that that not everything can exist forever, or else we'll just die in a sea of garbage. You have to be willing to accept that your art is not going to live forever. And we have pieces for example, the Mona Lisa, that cannot be shown in a museum for more than short periods of time, intermittently, because the light makes it so that eventually we won't be able to see it. So it's a battle between preservation and enjoying the thing before it dies forever. Yeah.
And then I want to say, you think that when Shelley wrote Ozymandias, he was thinking, when he wrote that phrase, look on these works, ye mighty, and despair. Mm-hmm. He was thinking, this is my work.
Yeah.
And so I want to say,
I'm sure he was.
Podcast,
look
on this podcast, ye mighty, and despair, because this is just awesome.
Uh-huh.
Eat your heart out, you microphone studio podcaster types. Mm-hmm. Sign off?
Okay. I love you. Get home safe.
I love you too. Back at you. Let's see if
find out if we were recording.
Oh my God, we are. An hour and 41 minutes.
Damn.
Okay.
Have fun with that.
Thanks.